Hi everyone, I'm Aaron Potratz.
And I am Nathan Hawkins. If you don't know us yet, we are the voices behind the Shrink Think podcast, which is part of the Psychcraft network of podcasts.
We are so proud to be a part of this network, along with the Practice of Therapy podcast with Gordon Brewer, and the great work he is doing to help people in their journeys.
And if you haven't discovered the Shrink Think podcast, you can find us wherever you listen to your podcast. We'd love for you to join us as we seek to help you with your relationships, your healthcare practices, and your therapy journey.
Join us as we bridge the gap between clients and therapists. And be sure to check us out at shrinkthink.com/podcast and take our free e-course.
And have a great day.
Over 15 years ago, when I started my private practice, I had to learn a lot, and most of it the hard way, and I don't think you need to do the same. Hi, I'm Gordon Brewer, a licensed psychotherapist, and welcome to the Practice of Therapy podcast, part of the Psychcraft network of podcasts. Join me in this journey of discovery as we have conversations with other leaders and professionals in both the mental and allied health fields. Join us as we explore both the business and clinical sides of running a private practice. Hello, folks, and welcome to the podcast. I'm Gordon Brewer, and this is episode number 254 of the podcast. And you probably noticed from the title that this is part two. And if you haven't listened to part one, that is episode 253 of my interview with Dr. Clifton Mitchell, I would encourage you to go back and listen to that first, because that way where we pick up on this particular episode is going to make more sense to you, because I just had to kind of cut it in half as far as the audio. So we pick up where we left off from episode number 253. But Dr. Clifton Mitchell is one of my former graduate school professors, and I think, as you will hear in this episode and last week's episode, he is such a delight to get to interact with and get to hear. And he is such a brilliant man. And one of the things I love about him is he's so engaging, and I just learned so much from him. I know when I was in graduate school, his classes were always the ones that I looked forward to the most. And I'm so fortunate and just really grateful to him for taking the time to let me interview him for this particular podcast, particularly about his book that he has out now called Programming the Mind for Habit Change and Success. And so we delve into just a lot of the stuff that's in the book. And I know, as I mentioned in the previous episode, when I started reading through the book and getting into the book, I just couldn't put it down. And it's just one of those kind of books that just really pulls you in, particularly just thinking about how we do therapy and what we do with our clients, and being more and more aware of what we say and how we say things with clients, because it can really have a big effect on helping them make some meaningful change in their lives and that sort of thing. And also, I want to mention here, before we get to the second part of the interview, I want to let you know about a special offering or special thing that's happening in conjunction with my interview with Dr. Mitchell, and that my friend Dr. David Hall over at Psych Maven partnered with Dr. Mitchell to create a course on overcoming resistance with clients. And also it's called Overcoming Resistance and Priming for Change is the name of the course. And this is an online course that also offers almost 10 CE hours. It's 9.75 CE hours that you can get by taking this course. And the course has limited availability in that David over at Psych Maven just releases this course periodically. But one of the things that he has done is he's graciously opened the cart so that you can get more of what you're hearing in this interview. And so if you'll go over to practiceoftherapy.com/Mitchell course, you can get access to that course if you do it between the dates of November 1st and November 11th, 2022. And I realize that folks, might be listening to this particular episode after this, but if you're listening to it during that time frame, the cart is open and you can enroll in that course. I know it's a course that I'm really looking forward to diving into and getting those CE credits. And it's a good time to get more CE credits, but the course is even better. And just knowing, as I shared, that when I had Dr. Mitchell in class, you'll get a taste of that through this course. And again, it's over 9 hours of instruction that you'll get in this particular course. And so, yeah, be sure and check it out. practiceoftherapy.com/Mitchell course. And full disclosure and full transparency here, this is an affiliate link. So if you enroll in the course, I do get a small commission at no extra cost to you by enrolling in the course. But anyway, take advantage of that. It's a great course. I've seen bits and pieces of it, getting ready to jump into it myself. But I think after you hear my interview with Dr. Mitchell here, you'll understand why you need to get into this course. Also, real quickly, before we get to this second part of my interview with Dr. Mitchell, I'd love for you to check out the Practice Launch Club. And it is an exclusive membership community, particularly for those folks that are in those beginning stages of starting their private practice. And you can find out more about that by going to practiceoftherapy.com/launch club. And we've got a great cohort of people that are meeting now, and I'd love for you to hear more about that. So check it out, practiceoftherapy.com/launch club. And also, real quickly here, before we get to my interview with Dr. Mitchell, love for you to hear from our sponsor of the podcast, TherapyNotes.
As your practice grows, the systems and processes you have in place will keep your practice running smoothly. That is why it is important to have an electronic health record system that is specific to mental health providers. TherapyNotes is a complete practice management system with everything you need to manage patient records, schedule appointments, meet with patients remotely, create rich documentation, and bill insurance right at your fingertips. Their streamlined software is accessible wherever and whenever you need it. They are who Gordon uses in his practice. And did I mention that they are one of the top-rated EHRs for mental health private practices? Their support is also second to none. Be sure to check them out at practiceoftherapy.com/therapynotes. Be sure to use the promo code GORDON to get 2 months free.
Yeah, and I know another thing you mentioned in the book is being aware of the tense that you use.
Yes.
In your reprogramming. I mean, to say I will do this or that is too much in the future.
It's all, if I will, I'm going to, I should, I ought to. All of that language this is something that's going to happen in the future. And your mind is saying, okay, tell me when you want to start.
Mm-hmm.
You're not saying do anything now. Mm-hmm. I'm going to lose some weight. I ought to lose some weight. I need to stop smoking. Well, yeah, you need to stop smoking, and your brain knew that years ago. But you're not triggering action. You
Mm-hmm.
are stating a desire in the future, and your subconscious is sitting there.
Mm-hmm.
Now, you need to understand something about the subconscious. The purpose of your subconscious is to automate, period. The subconscious is like a puppy dog sitting there going, what do you want me to automate? What do you want me to automate? Whatever you start doing and repeating, it will start literally burning neurons to automatically program this. And by the way, we can see this neural growth now with the new studies
in less than a month's time, literally under a microscope. So the neural growth that comes from repeatedly programming or anything happens much quicker than we ever thought. That's why we now have all this neuroplasticity research that says, yes, you can change your brain literally at the physical level, at the neurological level. So the subconscious is sitting there looking at what you're doing. And if you start doing something repeatedly, it immediately picks up on it and wants to create neural networks in your brain to turn it into an automatic process.
Right.
So it's waiting.
Yes.
But if you just say, I'm going to do this in the future, it's sitting there going, okay, what do you want me to program now?
Yes.
In fact, what you're programming is the statement that you're going to do it in the future over and over, and it'll keep saying that and make you say that over and over and over again, because that's what you're repeating. That's not giving it direction to start doing something now. So you need to program your mind in the present tense. I want you to start working on this now. Make me some neural connections that send me in this direction.
Yeah. So the other thing that comes up as you're talking about this is just I'm thinking about habit forming and how we do that, and how this this whole idea of priming and creating new dominant thoughts. And so how does our brain do that? I mean, how do we, and I know you mentioned in the book is through repetition.
Repetition is everything. If you look at the neuropsych research, the brain plasticity, you can look at nutrition, motivation, all sorts of factors. But the bottom line is that repetition dominates everything. Repetition is the primary overarching factor that will create mental programming or habits, period. So you can look at all the other factors, but none of them stand up to repetition. Whatever is repeated, the subconscious picks up on and starts programming, period. Now, let's make a comment about habits. There historically has been this thing, it takes 21 days to form a new habit. That came from Maxwell Maltz, is that right? Hope I got that right. Psycho-cybernetics. And that was a self-observation. Research on habit change says it's average about 66 days, a little over 2 months. And that is very dependent on what the habit is. A more complex habit is going to take even longer, a less complex habit shorter. Let me give you an example. My wife reads some research that says, if you use mouthwash at night, you should use your mouthwash before you brush your teeth, because if you brush your teeth and then use mouthwash, the mouthwash will wipe out the fluoride benefits from brushing your teeth. I always had done my mouthwash then brush my teeth. So I had to reverse this automatic process habit that I've been doing for years. So I'm coming to the bathroom at night before I go to bed and trying to remember mouthwash before brushing my teeth. I'm trying to override a 10-year well-formed habit that I don't even have to think to do. How long? Well, so I really had to initially concentrate with my conscious mind, think about what I'm doing. Okay, let's do the mouthwash first before we brush the teeth. But in about 2 weeks of consciously, deliberately forcing myself to do that, I started seeing the automation come in. Now it's completely automatic, by the way, in my life. So that was a very simple habit.
Right.
In about 2 weeks, I got it going. I could feel the automation coming in a month. I was doing it automatically. But if you have a more complex habit that's deeply ingrained, overeating, excessive eating, people see food, and there are triggers everywhere in our culture. It's more complex, and it's going to take more time to override those habits. But consistency and repetition is everything.
Yes. Yeah. As I was reading the book and thinking about that, one of the things for me, just personally, is that over the last 2 years, really it started in the middle of the COVID pandemic, but I realized that my health was out of control and I had gained so much weight and that sort of thing. And I was trying to remember and recollect how I changed my habits. I've lost 40 pounds over this time period. and I'm running again, and just just all of that sort of thing. It feels great. I mean, not to brag, but I just feel so much better physically and that sort of thing. But I'm still just kind of going back. Okay, how did I do this?
How did you do it?
Yeah,
you consciously. You had to get aware of it,
mm-hmm.
and then your conscious mind had to initially take over and override the subconscious urges and triggers.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
Yeah, and that's why we need our conscious mind. Our conscious mind is the control panel, by the way.
Right.
You could think of the conscious mind as this control panel that's sending
mm-hmm.
signals to the subconscious to do it.
Mm-hmm.
Conscious mind on this computer is the mouse and the pad and the keys.
Mm-hmm.
The subconscious mind is all that processing that happens in all those chips inside of the computer.
Mm-hmm.
How does that processing take place? I push a button here, and all of these things, switches are triggered. It's the
mm-hmm.
same way with the human mind. The conscious mind is the control panel, and the subconscious mind are all those chips and literally electronic circuits.
Mm-hmm.
And we don't realize when we push one button, thousands of switches are triggered.
Right.
In
Yeah.
fact,
So
maybe tens of thousands.
Yeah. And one of the things was, I think it required, which this ties into the dominant thoughts, is just being able to be consciously aware of what your dominant thoughts are and your mindset around things is. And then, I can remember, part of my mental process on days when I was, really being conscious of what I ate and how many calories and all of that kind of thing, is I switched my thinking, when I finished my last meal, instead of saying, "Oh, you can't have any more," to myself, I said to myself, "Oh, you're finished for the day.
I'm finished.
I'm finished." Yeah.
I'm going to bet something. I bet you never used to say the word finished after a meal.
Right.
Did you in the past say the word finished after a meal?
Probably not.
Think of the word finished. Now, let's just take this to do an exercise. I'm going to scratch my eye here. This is a little, I got a subconscious itch, and it says, get your finger in there. So you said the word finished. Think of all the triggers and the meaning of the word finish. Finished, done, completed, no other action needed, concluded, move on to something else. Do you see all the meanings?
Mm-hmm.
And I'm just hitting the ones that come to mind in the word finished.
Yeah.
If you say the word finished, you are triggering all of these meanings that send you somewhere else.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
And I bet you never said the word finished.
Yeah. Yeah.
Did you before?
Correct. Yeah.
You did.
I just thought, it's just kind of like, the thoughts that came to mind is that, there was a sense of accomplishment,
it means accomplishment. Look at that. Finished. I have accomplished. I have concluded.
Mm-hmm.
I am done. See, but there's another built-in meaning to finished, isn't it?
Mm-hmm. Sure.
Accomplishment. Sure. You did it.
Mm-hmm.
Complete. See, there's so much in that word.
Yeah.
But if you never say that word, you can't trigger all of that.
Yeah. Yeah.
If you say this, that's good. I wonder what's for dessert. We got any dessert?
Yeah. Yeah.
Or do we have any of those cookies left?
Mm-hmm.
See, there's a completely different mindset.
Yeah. Yeah. So
just the word finished triggers so much.
Mm-hmm.
It's a great word.
Yeah. Yeah. So to shift gears maybe just a little bit, and I think we probably, as you're listening to this, you're listening to the second half of this, but in thinking about what we talk to our clients about and how we frame things, you want to say a little more about that?
Well, yes. The bottom line is, let's just back up and get real basic with therapy. The client says something, you say something. They say something, you say something. What you say and how you say what you say is the therapy. Period. Therapy doesn't take place in theoryville. It doesn't take place in techniqueville. Techniques don't work unless you have the right words to go with them. Therapy takes place in the moment-to-moment interaction between you and the client. They say something, you say something. What you say and how you say what you say is the therapy. It's not somewhere else. It's right there in that moment-to-moment interaction. So, this is my big theme. You can't say things any old way, and be therapeutic. You can't be sloppy, haphazard, deleterious with your language and be therapeutic. You need to respond when the client says something in a manner, and you're going to do it whether you want to or not, that triggers beneficial therapeutic thoughts in the client. So give me any statement that you can think of that a client said to you. Just give me a statement.
Yeah. I'm so tired of this. I'm sick of being sick.
So, okay, excellent. So client says, I'm so tired of this. I'm sick of being sick. I can say, wow, you sound really worn out and tired, and you really are sick a lot. This has really gotten you down. And I can sit there and wallow in that. Now, what I would recommend is what I call high level of empathic responding. It sounds like these events and these repetitious events in your life are quite exhausting for you. And what I'm hearing is you're really looking for a way to create change in your life to move in a different direction. Now, that was a simple response, a beginning response. I could sit there and wallow in they're worn out, they're tired, but I latched on. Okay, I understand what you're saying. This has been absolutely exhausting. And it sounds like to me you're looking for this. Now, let's say you're looking for this or you want this. What's going to happen next in the dialogue? Well, if the client says, yes, that's what I want, the client you've already created movement in a new direction. They've said, and they're showing, you've tapped into a motivation. Okay, so you're looking for new places to go and new alternatives, new behaviors to incorporate into your life. Notice all the things I'm saying. I could say, wow, this got you down. You're worn out. You sound depressed. You sound fatigued. It's really bad. Tell me all the bad things happening. And we can wallow in it.
Yeah.
Or I can possibly trigger things. Now, that's a beginning statement of trying to lead them in a direction.
Right.
Now, suppose they say, well, I don't know what I want, which is probably the three most common words in therapy are the I don't know response. And I have a whole chapter about it in my resistance book. I don't want to fight that, by the way, because if I fight not knowing, I just create not knowing. I would just simply say, wow, you're stumped at this moment. Notice I say at this moment, implying you're not going to be stumped in the future. At this moment, currently, you're feeling really stumped as you search for a direction that may be beneficial for you. So I'm not denying they're stumped, but I'm not harping on it. And I say at this moment currently. So I'm also planting the seed. This is a temporary state. My language is not locking them into this state. In fact, it's trying to say this is temporary. There is another way. And then I say, as you're searching for and considering alternatives. Now, when I say searching for and considering alternatives, what's going to happen in their mind? They're going to run out and start momentarily. The dominant thought says, go search for, look for alternatives. My language is directing their mind to do this, but I didn't tell them, go look for alternatives. I said, as you're looking for alternatives, implying that they're naturally doing this. So I'm not pushing it on them. I'm just suggesting this is, and if they go, yeah, I've got no resistance. And you can then keep walking down this road. But if we sit there and talk about how they got down and how sad it was, and yes, and this has been burdensome, and tell me all the bad things that's ever happened to you, you're sitting there triggering and actually growing the problem. Now, there's nothing wrong with that, because one of the initial jobs of therapists is to grow up the negativity of the current situation. Because that creates motivation for a new situation. So you want to, this is really strange, but research says that it's good for the client to analyze their problem and actually feel worse to some degree initially. Because feeling worse and magnifying the negative creates motivation to move towards the new behavior. So sometimes there's a benefit in staying there on the negative for a while. But if that's all you do and you don't trigger other stuff, you're going to go nowhere. You're going to actually wallow in resistance. And you create resistance by not moving away from it. So your language is going to lead that client down the road. And there's many ways to do this.
One of the questions I find myself asking clients a lot is when they, especially on the first, usually like a first session, and they're talking about, what they're struggling with and all of that sort of thing. I usually ask the question, well, why do you think you are like you are?
Oh, okay. Well, now you're going to trigger a lot of things in me. For example, I wouldn't use a question, and I wouldn't use why.
Okay.
And here's the reason, and I don't mean to be critical. And if you have a highly motivated client, that's going to work fine. If you have a highly unmotivated, resistant client, a why question is very threatening. Why do you think it is? Well, it almost sounds like, all right, tell me where you screwed up in your life. Tell me where you're making mistakes. Tell me how you've messed up. So there's a couple of things we need to realize about questions. Many times therapists ask questions with preordained answers. They ask a question trying to get the client to say what they want the client to say. The therapist and the client both know the answer. Such questions are really micro confrontations. They're little mini confrontations. I'm going to put it on you. I'm confronting you. But we tend to think of them as helpful, but to the client, they can be very threatening. So when you ask a why question, it really brings it even on home a little harder. It's like, I'm pregnant. Well, why didn't you use birth control? That really says, boy, you screwed up, you dummy. Why did I'm really putting the blame on you strong. So I would suggest that you soften that up. And the way you soften it up is don't ask a question and ask what I call a curious command. What is a curious command? It is a command grammatically delivered with a paralanguage of curiosity. You're coming from not a position of knowing, trying to get them to understand. You're coming from a position of naivety. I'm dumb. Help me to understand. So if you said, well, tell me what resulted in things getting like this. Help me to understand how the evolution of this. And you're real puzzled. Then the client has to explain to you to help you understand why it happened. But they don't feel like they're being threatened. They feel like they're helping you out to grasp their world.
Yes.
That makes sense.
Yes, it does.
Softer.
And what it reminds me of is moving from the why questions, which I, believe it or not, when you said that, I realized that one of the things that I have done that is much more effective is asking how questions.
That's right.
So, how is it that this happens?
Yeah.
Rather than why does this happen?
And then back it down another notch. You need to get dumb and curious. And by the way, make sure you do this. Clients talk more if you do this, literally. It's incredible. They don't talk and you do this and they talk. It's so
Just for folks listening, what Cliff is doing is he's gesturing with his hands towards himself.
Towards yourself. Yeah.
Yeah.
So if you just say, wow, okay. So help me to understand the evolution of your life to get to this point. Now, look at that. There's no question there. Help me to understand the evolution of your life to get to this point. That's not a question. What is that? That's a command. I want you to tell me how you got here. But it doesn't come across as a command. It comes across as, I need you to help me out. And that's what I call the curiosity part. You're naive. Help me to understand how events unfolded that resulted in things being as they are now. And you want to be dumb here, so the client feels like they have to explain to you. Now we get to the same information, but I didn't come at you in a way that was trying to criticize you or feel threatening to you. We have to remember that questions that put people on the spot or that have what I call preordained answers. Do you think that was beneficial if you went and got drunk like that? That's a preordained answer question. Or micro confrontations. They're little confrontations. And the more we can cut those out, the more the client feels free to talk and unthreatened.
Yes.
That makes sense?
Yes.
So again, here's language, priming, and triggering the client. So if I just say, help me to understand, I'm triggering what? Explain to me, teach me. I'm not saying I'm coming after you. So I'm triggering a very different set of mental processes in the client's mind.
Yes. Oh, this is such great stuff. And, I've got to be aware of our time because, this is just great stuff. So Cliff, tell folks how they can get in touch with you. And also, I'm going to mention here, if you are wanting to dive in deeper to this, there is a course that Cliff did called Overcoming Resistance and Priming for Change. And I'm going to have links here in the show notes and the show summary, and the cart, so to speak, is going to be open for a couple of weeks, about a week here as this episode comes out, so you can get that course and also get the CEs associated with it. So it's a great course, and also the book. But Cliff, tell them how they can get to all of this.
Well, the courses that you're talking about are available through Psych Maven. They've just come out. And I hadn't even looked at them on there myself. But one of them is dealing with the management of resistance. It's actually quite long. Was done a very sophisticated videoing of it. And the other one is about priming. And it's basically my keynote presentation on the concept of priming that I've done at mental health conferences.
Yes.
Now, I also have books. All of us trainers have books. And if you want to get in the training business, you got to write a book. There's no way around it these days. If you go to my website, cleverly named CliftonMitchell.com, you can see my two books, Effective Techniques for Dealing with Highly Resistant Clients and Priming, Programming the Mind for Habit Change and Success. And they talk about these two topics that are highly interlinked. There's actually a chapter in the resistance book about priming that introduces the concept. And that chapter expanded is the priming book, basically.
Right. And we'll have links in the show notes and the show summary here for folks to get to that easily. And also, if you haven't done so already, be sure and get on my email list, and you will be getting emails about this, so you can't miss out on any of this. So
let me mention one more thing. I want to slip one thing in here. My books we're talking rather scientific here, but my books are not written at some highly scientific level. They're written to be understood by anybody with a high school education. They're written to be quick reads that try to get to the point as quickly as possible. So there's a lot of scientific stuff here and there, But my resistance book, I try to be very to the point. You can pick it up randomly and read it. My priming book, you can. I told Gordon, just read the chapter titles, the quotes, the dark print, the chapter summaries, and you can get the points. And then you can delve into other stuff in detail. So these are not difficult reads.
Yes. And I can attest to that, because that's, exactly was my experience. I did his priming book over the weekend. And so it was, and it's just a lot to think about. So, well, Cliff, I'm so glad we reconnected, and I'm sure I'm going to have you back for more conversations. And be sure to check out his stuff in the show notes, in the show summary. And thanks again. So all I can say is, wow, I really enjoyed my conversation with Dr. Mitchell, as you can tell. He is just such a fascinating person. And this topic around priming just really has changed the way I think about some of the work that I do with my clients, but also really able to apply it to my life as well, of just really thinking about how we can take those dominant thoughts that we have and really use them to help us transform and make some habit change in our lives. And be sure and check out Dr. Mitchell's books, and you can find those by going to cliftonmitchell.com, and there'll be links here in the show notes and the show summary. And also, if you are interested in really diving in much deeper in this for a limited time from November 1st to November 11th, and that's 2022, if you're listening to this later on, there is a course that Dr. Mitchell did with my good friend, Dr. David Hall. And the title of that course is called Overcoming Resistance and Priming for Change. And with that particular course, you can get almost 10 CE hours with that course if you take it and take the quiz afterwards. But also, for this limited time, you can access the course. And you can get to that by going to practiceoftherapy.com/Mitchell course. And that'll get you into where you can, the card will be open and you can purchase the course. And like I said at the beginning, full disclosure, this is an affiliate link. And so I do get a commission if you enroll in the course in that at no extra cost to you. And again, thanks to David Hall for opening the carts for a short time here to give folks access to that particular course. And as I mentioned, after hearing Dr. Mitchell, I hope that you can see why this course would be really worthwhile for you and just really help you learn a lot, plus get those continuing education credits along with that, an extra little perk with that. And also, before we close out, I'd love for you to find out more about the Practice Launch Club, and particularly if you're in those beginning stages of starting a private practice, I'd love for you to join us in that particular exclusive membership community. And you can find out more about that by going to practiceoftherapy.com/launch club. And we've got a wonderful cohort of people right now, and I'd love for you to join in with us. So be sure to check that out. And as always, a big thanks to my our sponsor of the podcast, TherapyNotes. They are the leading electronic health record system for mental health providers. They're who I use in my practice, and love for you to find out more about them. And you find out more by going to practiceoftherapy.com/TherapyNotes. And be sure and use the promo code Gordon, just GORDON, and you can check that out for 2 months for free and see if it's a good fit for you. And also, real quickly before we close out, I'd love for you to find out more about the Psychcraft network of podcasts, of which this podcast is a member, and there's a lot of great other podcasts out there. And you heard from one at the beginning of this. And so you can find out more about that by going to psychcraftnetwork.com. And here's from some other great leaders in our field in this whole private practice space and allied health space. Just to learn how to build your practice and grow your practice. And be sure and take time to follow us wherever you might be listening to your podcast and leave us a review. That just helps boost up our ratings and all of that sort of thing and make it easier for other people to find us. So take care, folks, and look forward to being with you next week for another episode of the Practice of Therapy podcast. You've been listening to the Practice of Therapy podcast with Gordon Brewer, part of the PsychCraft network of podcasts. You can find out more about the other great podcasts in the network by visiting psychcraftnetwork.com. And if you haven't done so already, please visit us at practiceoftherapy.com and get your free private practice startup guide, along with a lot of other great resources and webinars and free things just by visiting. Also, be sure to follow us wherever you might be listening to your podcasts. This podcast is intended to be educational in purpose and is not intended to give legal, accounting, or counseling advice. If you need a professional, find the right person for that.